Hello, friends. And here we are again, everybody. Another new episode of Improv and Magic. I'm your host, LD Madera, and welcome back. I hope this day finds you happy and well, and I hope you're ready for today's episode because it's a really good one. Today's guest is absolutely unbelievable. He's among the greatest magicians and mentalists of our time. He's amazingly talented, and he's truly one of the best. My guest today is David Gerard. His performances have graced Fortune 500 companies, Silicon Valley elite gatherings, and international stages, including more than 60 shows at the Magic Castle in Hollywood. David performs shows for audiences from 15 to 1,000 people. His magic appeals to modern audiences, and he specializes in close-up, mind-reading, influence, and prediction tricks. Whether he's standing on a stage in front of a large crowd or just walking around small groups, David Gerard will affect and astound you with his unique approach to magic. In addition to being incredibly skilled, David also has a great ability to connect with the audience. He knows how to get on your level and make you feel a part of the show too. Thousands of event planners have chosen David for their events, and he's trusted by the world's leading companies that include Vanity Fair, Google, eBay, Walgreens, and Facebook, just to name a few. Not only do I love talking to people who are good at what they do, but I also love hearing how passionate they are. David Gerard is no exception. In this conversation, you'll definitely hear how much love and passion he has. And you'll also hear how important it is for him to really connect with the audience. I felt so inspired by David. I hope you do too. Please enjoy now my conversation with the amazing David Gerard. My friends, I'm very happy to welcome here on Improv and Magic the absolutely amazing Mr. David Gerard. Hey, David, how are you doing today?
Hey, man, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I understand that you recently took a vacation.
Yeah, I did. How did you know that?
Well, it could have been from various emails that you and I have sent to each other in preparing for this.
Oh, yeah, such is mentalism. Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah, I was down in Nicaragua with some friends, just hanging out, relaxing after a pretty busy kind of Q1 on the magic scene. So taking a break.
Cool. How often do you take vacations?
That's such an interesting place to start. Not enough. For about 12 years, I had a full-time job in tech and then was doing, 50, 60, 70 shows at night. So I was only taking vacation to go do shows, or taking off 2 weeks to fill in for my best friend Colin on The Illusionists, or taking a week off to go to the castle. So I don't really think I am good at taking vacations, and it's something I'm working on. It's so key.
Do you enjoy that constant busy lifestyle?
No, I think honestly, I have kind of David 1.0 and David 2.0. And David 1.0 was kind of trying to get as good at marketing and as good as magic as humanly possible. And that was really during my 20s. And I really was pedal to the metal. And while I definitely it was enjoyable, but it led to this really kind of deep burnout. And so now I think in David 2.0, it's more about doing 60 great shows a year instead of 90, where the back 20 are just you're burnt. And so constantly playing with rest versus recharge versus performance, and it's been an ongoing thing, especially after having gone full-time 2 years ago, really saying, oh, okay, I got some new energy now that I'm not doing the 9 to 5. How do I use that in a really great way and differentiate for my clients because I have so much energy, etc.
Well, it's funny. I think that need to rest and recharge kind of gets overlooked a lot because, there's a lot of people who are like, I just want to keep doing shows and keep doing shows and keep doing shows. And they don't realize how that burnout can really have a negative effect on you if you're not too careful. Would you agree?
1,000%. I think a lot of people come to magic. I mean, or maybe any small business with a scarcity mindset, which is like, we need to be open 24 hours a day, we need to perform 7 days a week, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's definitely a time where that makes a lot of sense, right? You should be doing maybe 5 restaurants a week if you're in hustle mode, trying to get really, really good and build a financial foundation. But what I have found is that now, it's the more that my presence feels rejuvenated and rested and really like tonight is the night, it leads to more business velocity anyway. So this is kind of like, Bob Cassidy used to say, like, the easy way is actually the hard way, right? Like, memorize the deck and then you're always going to have it, instead of looking at a crib sheet. And so the same thing can be said for our businesses and shows. And I'm still learning in that regard, but yeah, definitely gunned it too hard. And I don't think a lot of people take that step back and say, okay, I had 2 shows this week. I'm going to use the other 5 days to really analyze my footage and think about what I'm doing, instead of just hustle, 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 and never reflecting.
Well, I'm really excited to get to know more about you, David. So I want to start at the very beginning of David Gerard's story.
Mm.
So, where did you grow up and what was growing up like for you?
Yeah, grew up in Pennsylvania, the son of a third grade teacher and a computer programmer, basically. And so, normal kind of middle class upbringing, super blessed to grow up in a safe town in Pennsylvania, an old steel town called Bethlehem. And yeah, growing up was a lot of, I was really into like solo hobbies where I could kind of go super deep. And what I mean by that is skateboarding, yo-yo, juggling, hacky sack, even like tricks with frisbees, right? I was super freestyle rapping, just super interested in that kind of thing, right? Where I could kind of like put in 1 ounce of effort and see, a pound of return. And I loved hobbies that I could carry in my pocket. And simultaneously was starting all these little businesses, whether it was like, shoveling snow or mowing lawns or what have you. And I loved like making creative flyers and stuff. And so, my childhood is a pretty standard American upbringing, but definitely with a level of seriousness about practice that I think was maybe a little more rare. I really was okay being in the basement for 3 hours trying to split the atom with my yo-yo.
So, it sounds like even back then you were a pretty busy kid.
I thought you were gonna say loser. Yeah, I was definitely really, really busy. I never gravitated towards like the video games and the movies and things like that. Call it attention span, call it something else, I'm not sure. But I mean, also like in the '90s, man, like skateboarding was sick. Like, it was having this beautiful moment, right? Yo-yo was really actually cool. I mean, I went to the Pennsylvania State Yo-Yo Championships. Hacky sack, otherwise known as footbag, was like this really beautiful game that I was super into, and the internet was exploding. So you could go and learn a kickflip online, right? Whereas before, you probably had to find someone at the skate park. And so I think there was really a renaissance for hobbies in general during those late '90s, early 2000s, and I definitely rode that wave and had parents who thought it was cool, and my dad would watch me skateboard outside and stuff, and it was awesome.
When you were growing up, did you kind of have an idea of what it was that you wanted to do with your life?
No, not really. Yeah, no, and magic, right? Like, which we can get into. I saw some stuff when I was 6, and then I really didn't know how to get good at that. It was funny. It was like, for some reason, the good secrets online eluded me, and like sometimes the books were hard to translate and stuff. I didn't know anybody else who did magic, whereas my neighbor would do all my hobbies with me. It was much much easier. But no, I don't think I had a sense of really what I wanted to do. I was just kind of following the fun at that point.
Well, how did you discover magic? How did you get into that?
Yeah. So I was 6. I went to FO Schwartz, which is the biggest toy store in America. And I saw someone demonstrating Marvin's magic and did the dynamic coins. And it was incredible. And I tell this story in some of my intimate close up shows. I'll give you the brief version. But, my dad reacted in this beautiful way where he was really stunned and he was really amazed. And at that moment, I tell the audience my dad made a choice. Like, he could have been skeptical and tried to pull mystery apart, but instead, he chose, or maybe didn't even choose, something deep in him chose to flip out. And him and I were the same age for a minute. And so I had this beautiful introduction. but then kind of a tough onboarding because I had my dynamic coins, but I didn't have, much else. And it wasn't until I was 18 that I met kind of my first mentor, whose name is Nathan Kepner. And he really kind of showed me how it could be done. So, I would see David Blaine on TV. I thought that was quite unattainable. I thought he was real. It's a different, longer story, but yeah. And then eventually found my way.
I know that there are a lot of magicians who, when they start off young, one big thing that's very important to them is being able to get that reaction from their families. And I
Mm.
know for me growing up, it was a huge thing to be able to entertain my mom and amaze my mom. Was that something that was also important for you, entertaining your mom and your dad?
It's a great question. What comes up for me is kind of like the bar was set really high at FAO Schwartz. Like, I don't think I ever got that from my dad for like quite a long time. I mean, we saw someone who I guess must have been very good. I mean, who knows what New York City magician was demonstrating at FAO Schwartz during the day, or for some reason it became this real upper bar. And so yeah, I was, showing mom and dad some stuff, but I didn't really crack into like good material until I was like 18, 19. And then I remember coming home and doing some of the new stuff. Like I remember learning Chicago opener, right, with a real like with good technique. And that was like, okay. This is not me fumbling my way through cups and balls or something. What you said there, I mean, I think one thread to pull is this idea that I now feel so blessed that I didn't really get serious about magic until I was an adult, 18, 19, 20. And most of my memories of magic are as an 18 or older. And I think that's really valuable because like the first time I saw Nathan, I was at a party like a normal person flipping out. And it's really hard to go back to 6 years old and remember how that felt, but 18 is a little closer. And so I just, we can talk about intent and why people do magic, but at 6, 7, 8, 9, it's kind of it's a different tool than I think it can become when you perform as an adult.
I absolutely agree. I mean, you definitely look at magic differently from when you're a kid to when you turn 18 as an adult. And I think you even look at it differently as you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Before you turned 18 and before you were really passionate about it, what was your overall view of magic?
My overall view was really very positive. I never had a magician at my birthday party. There were no magicians really like doing those kind of events. So I had like the FAO Schwartz memory of 10 minutes. And then I had David Blaine and World's Greatest Magic on TV. And so to me, like magic was incredible. And if anything, so incredible that it was so out of reach. Like I didn't see Lance Burton and say, I'll go get some doves. I mean, Nathan, my mentor, did, right? Like I couldn't make that link. Whereas skateboarding, right? I would see, Tony Hawk and I would be like, well, I can go buy one. It was much closer to actualization. So yeah.
Other than David Blaine and the magician you saw at FAO Schwartz, who would you say were some of your biggest influences as you were growing up and developing yourself?
Honestly, no one, because I don't think I considered myself a magician until I was really 18 or 19. And so after like 19, I found Darren Brown on YouTube. 19, right? I found Banachek. 19, the rabbit hole began to open. But yeah, I don't really even consider myself. People say, when did you start? I say 6. But honestly, I started at 18. At in college. And when I already had I had already learned how to practice from all these other hobbies. So the idea of doing the pass for 2 hours didn't really scare me. Whereas sometimes I think if magic's your first hobby, you're not only learning magic, you're learning how to get good at craft. And then you're juggling, two balls at once.
I hear you. Absolutely hear you. Here's something that you can either confirm or deny. You decided to leave a good job at Google in order to pursue magic. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's most of the way there. So I did 5 years at Google, then I did 7 years in startups. So think like Silicon Valley TV show, and you're not actually too far off. A bunch of different companies, and the only one that most people know is like Discord, and then bunch of smaller companies along the way. And then left to pursue magic full time. And in my last year in startups, I think I did like 80, 85 shows. So, and these are a combination of theater, public, corporate, private. the castle, a mix of many things. And that's when I decided to say, let's double down on this.
So you, of course, have been specializing in mentalism, and you do a tremendous job of that. And so I'm curious, what is it about mentalism specifically that really appeals to you?
Yeah, I think what's funny is to almost poke the narrative here. I always feel like people in magic think that I'm a mentalist, and a lot of that has to do with my relationship with Colin Cloud. A lot of that has to do with just I think what I've more like publicly presented at Magi Fest in the session. But honestly, like I cut my teeth doing strolling magic, up close sleight of hand, and I'd like to think that the chops. A lot of pure mentalists don't have any chops. Let's just call it how it is, right? They can basically flip through a flashback and that's it. I mean, I've studied with Jamie and Swiss and Eric Mead on my sleight of hand. I'm proud of being a magician first. And so for me, I really admire people like Aussie who lead with magician and then it has a mental flavor. So, on any given night, my corporate show that I pay my rent with is, probably 30% magic, 70% mentalism. But I love both. So that's kind of piece number one, which I think is just important because I'd hate for someone to turn off this podcast because they're like, he's a mentalist. But we can go from there. And then you asked about the appeal of it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, I think I had different phases of this. But it's always been, the backbone has been that I want to be in live creation with the audience and my spectators / participants versus demonstrating magic tricks. So manipulation never appealed to me because there was no back and forth kind of banter. And my stints in juggling always fell short because there wasn't that dynamic back and forth. And so for me, like one of the gifts that the universe has given me is this ability to riff and improv and use the gift of language. And so for me, mentalism became the real canvas on which I could use those unique gifts. If I was super shy and couldn't really verbalize, I'd probably be more in a different camp. Even my close-up, though, is highly interactive. I mean, stuff is going out to everybody, but mentalism was the way on the platform to really create these moments with people that felt very dynamic, not just what was your word, but actually with byplay and with energetics that, that's what I would want to watch.
Well, I really like what you say about how you call yourself a magician first and then a mentalist. Do you think it's a good idea for magicians to kind of learn everything that's out there? Or do you think it's useful for magicians to kind of pick one field over the other? Or does it depend?
Yeah, so I think, again, David 1.0, 2.0. 1.0 would give a very canned stock answer about get a good base and get a good foundation and blah, 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 blah. David 2.0 is kind of like, I want to see performers who are super jazzed about the material that they're performing. And I really don't want to see someone who's doing a trick because they should or because someone told them to. Like, imagine if Jerry Seinfeld was like, hey, look, like, I don't really love half these jokes, but like, I think I should do them so that there's texture in the set. I think it would just be a little like deflating. And so for me, I like I just think people should do what they really want to do because at the end the audience will feel that. Like I have been convinced so many times where you would say, David, how do you feel about the linking rings? Not a fan. Then I see someone who loves them like Jared Koff do it and I'm like, oh, I guess it's amazing. And that's because of the passion, the energy that he puts into it. Even there's a great guy, I forget his name, who does SpongeBob magic out of Spain, some at Magic Live, some crazy technique. I'm a 7-year-old kid watching him do sponge balls, and I really don't love sponge balls. And so what I'm saying is like find that thing that's super exciting. And what's funny is along the way, you're probably going to have to learn foundational technique anyway. Someone's going to give you a piece of advice. I'll give you a good example. There's some great peaks that you can do in mentalism with palming technique. So of course I had to call Jamie and Swiss and say, we need to work on the top palm. Let's do some lessons, right? Like, even though that was, you had to go to the supermarket before you could, cook with whatever, milk or something. And so that is my long-winded answer to, I want a kid at a magic convention to walk out to me and be like, I love these 5 pieces to death. I know their history. I've learned all the classic the techniques. I have my own spins on it. I love these pieces. They're my baby. I don't want someone being like, I have a really diversified act because I think I should.
And you can definitely see how many magicians will just perform the one trick that's like the new one that's out for sale, and now everyone's doing it. And a lot of times they're doing it not because they're really into it, but it's just because it's the popular thing to do. Do you see that a lot in magic?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it comes down to habits, and it comes down to being conscious or unconscious or awake or asleep. So if you're asleep, you get an email from the great guys at Penguin Magic or whatever, and you're like, oh, like, what is the closest chemical reaction I can get? I buy it, it shows up, I do it at the Magic Club, and I'm getting the cheap hit. It's a sugar high, right? No one wants to hear about me doing Lincoln rings for 5 hours in my bedroom. No one, but when you go and put that in front of an audience, perhaps there's a little more sustenance there, a little bit more protein, if you will, versus just doing the quick hits over and over again. And then you never really get good at anything. But so yeah, I totally see that, man. And I totally there's so many things in that universe of just what is your goal? Is your goal to do a professional show for different audiences where you 7 tricks and you're going to do them for 20 years? Or actually is your goal at the next coffee with your magic buddy to have something new? I try not to judge anything. And when I say it's sugar, yeah, like, yo, I love Skittles. But it just is a matter of, as a professional entertainer who wants to have some unique touches on things and doesn't want to roll into a gig and say, we saw that. I got to think about this a little more, you know?
What I really love as I hear you talk about how you describe you performing, I love the fact that it seems like you really focus not just on what the audience sees, but what the audience feels as well. Is that something that's important for you?
It's everything. Like, it's everything because the audience can go and see another magician and they can go see, even yesterday, one of my best friends here, Brad Barton, like, he does Gypsy Thread. I'm working on Gypsy Thread. Okay, so you can go see it 2 times in this city. And it's like, well, yeah, but what's the feeling? Like, what's going to push that through, you know? And go to the Magic Castle with a layman and see 5 magicians and then see what they remember and see. And like, feeling will become quite paramount. And I want people to feel like my show is this act of excitement and joy and exuberance and passion. And I want people to say to me, you're having a blast up there, to the point where it almost becomes contagious. And the joy, you would be really weird to be like, all right, I'm not getting on board. Kind of like if you're at a comedy show, right? You can't, and everyone's laughing. And so I love serious performers. I love performers who don't look like they're having fun. I love character pieces, etc. But for me personally, because I spent, honestly, so many years being burned out and tired and stressed and using magic as a way to get affirmations, God, to be on the other side of that mountain and just be like, I'm doing Pegasus Page because I freaking love it and I think you need to see it. That is such a pure transmission instead of I just bought this, or please think I'm cool, or it was expensive so I'm using it, or I'm here to impress magicians, who aren't in most of my audiences. There's a lot there, man. But yeah, feeling is first for me. Like, the feeling I get from Aussie, Tim Conover, Eric Mead, Jared, Paul, like, I don't want to give that exact feeling to my audience, but I want that, I want that felt, man. It's like, it's everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What really excites me about your show, especially because it's me who dabbles in magic and improv, is that
Yeah.
there is a good amount of improv that actually you do apply in your show. Have you ever learned improv before, or is that just a skill that you're naturally good at?
So I am a product of Whose Line Is It Anyway every Friday night with my family for whatever, 5, 6, 7 years. My dad loves Robin Williams. My dad loves Jim Carrey. I mean, I was exposed to improv from like a very early age, right? And then when I went to Google, they had improv classes on Tuesday night. So I did not a ton of them. I did a handful of them, and it was really, really great. And the performers, this goes back to feeling. I want the audience to feel like this is being created live for them. This has never happened before and it will never happen again. Why is that? Because in life now, everything is a press play, on demand, streaming. The book is written before you even open it. So, what is refreshing and different and unique and special to modern audiences is when they know that you didn't say that line about those shoes last night, and they know that the phone didn't go off at this moment, even though we might know that those are things that happen a lot, right? I want people to not be able to look away because they know that this is someone creating live and it won't happen tomorrow and it's not being filmed. So you can't push it into the future. And so a little bit of improv classes. And then I think for me, what I did, this was not really by choice, but I went through 5, 6, 7 years of not being great because I was so addicted, I think, subconsciously to that idea of the improv show. So let me break this down. If you're a scripted performer with a script that you have memorized, you can go out and be decent tomorrow because you just say the words. If you are trying to develop a uniquely differentiated improv style, you're going to need to throw 3,000, 4,000 hours at that. You know what I mean? As an improv guy, and so what I'm saying here is that I now am reaping the rewards of 7 to 8 years of being pretty freestyly. And that was a journey that once you get a taste though, this is a quote I say sometimes that people have found helpful. A custom 6 will beat a stock 10. And what I mean by this is if I create a joke for you right now based on your shirt and your cool glasses and it's a 6, it's going to really be way more memorable and enjoyable than a 10 that I say every night, which is about, the iPads glued together or whatever it is. And I just feel that way. And so to me, how in my show can I find all of these 6s and 7s, sometimes 10s, that are made for them? Done.
Well, I think one of the big advantages of you learning improv is the fact that what you do so well is you manage to make that personal connection with the audience. And there are a lot of magicians that do it very well, like you, and other magicians who try to, but don't really do it that well. For you, David, what's your technique in creating that personal relationship, that personal connection with your audience?
Yeah, so great. There's a great breadcrumb along the way. So let's talk about where most magicians are falling down on this topic, in my humble opinion. So the way that I think about this is, you know how when you used to do Control Alt Delete on a Windows, you could see all the programs that are running?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If your show is running like a Windows PC and you have 15 open tasks, the palm, the music, the lights, the this, the person in the front row, the this, the this, the this, and you want to introduce improv.exe, improv as a file or a program, and you're already at 97%, I mean, you're done. You're done before you start. Like, you're going to give 3% to this idea. And so for me, I just try to get craft and technique and all the other variables down to a place where I'm running at 20% to do the show, and I got 80%, a constant radar, a constant sweep of the room of what could happen in the moment, right? And so I'm always thinking about how to make something easier so that I free up my system resources. And I see so many guys working so hard, guys and gals, working so hard to to improv when honestly their palms flashing, maybe they know it, you know what I mean? And one simple thing, a simple tip is I walk the stage for 10, 15, 20 minutes when people are at cocktail hour before they come in for the dinner for the corporate, and I'll just say my lines. And that is me like caching, to pull this analogy all the way, caching as much as possible so that when I get on stage, I'm like, well, I already walked this. I already know I'm going to this table. I already, you get it. And so, yeah, man. So that answers the question of I think a lot of magicians are falling down because they don't have that. That's number one. Number two is they don't throw themselves in the deep end over and over. A shout out to one of my really good friends, Soham, who's down at the castle. This guy's there 5 nights a week, just throwing himself in the deep end, saying, what do you do for a living? How'd you hear about the castle? Did you park or valet? And just rolling with it, films every show, and then thinks about what he should have said when the guy said, I'm a heart surgeon, right? Beautiful. Third thing is you said the personal connection with my audience. I mean, there's just so much here. I mean, number one, let's break it down into two things. So, number one is intent, and number two is customization. So, I spoke earlier that, like, I would say from 18 to 27, 28, so for a decade, my intent with magic was to help pay my expensive rent in San Francisco. It was to impress, people and make them like me or whatever it was, like, and a few other things. But like, the intent was not this transaction, not transaction. This intent was not wrapped in love, and it was not wrapped in honoring my mentors and, giving back to the community and creating mystery and wonder. It was just the intent was off. Kind of like when you see a rock star and you're like, I know why he's here, versus you go and see, the Killers, and you see Brandon Flowers and you're like, I think he really wants to be here tonight. It's a different way of intent, and it's not pure every night. But so that's intent. I feel like there's a personal connection driven by the fact that they know that I want to be here, period. And if you think about all the great entertainers, I saw Celine live. The intent felt really pure. I just read an article on Conan O'Brien. Seems like his intent is pretty pure. So that's number one. And then number two is customization, which I've spoken about on Jonah's podcast. So we don't have to double click, but at a high level, when I customize, for example, if I do what's your favorite author, LD?
My favorite author, one of my favorite authors is Paulo Coelho.
Oh, okay, amazing. Paulo Coelho, right? If I show up at your birthday party and I do a book test with all Paulo books, right? You're like, holy crap. Like, our personal connection is super deep, right? Imagine if I read one of them before I came, super deep. Imagine if I found out which one was your favorite from your friend, super deep. Imagine if you get it. And that personal connection is just like, just care more. Like, there's great quotes from people way cooler than me who are just like, just be the one who cares the most. And let me really quick, a lot of magicians say, if they like you, they'll like what you do. If you care a lot, you'll have a great business, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, you have to have great craft and be great on stage and care more. Like, it's not unfortunately, if they like you, they will not like what you do if you are flashing and you do bad material.
That's interesting because some of the magicians that I've spoken to, we get into the conversation about what you put more weight on, craft or performance. And it sounds like for you, there should be a balance between the two.
Totally. And I think it depends on your goals. Like, what's funny is I know people whose craft is 3,000 times better than mine. They don't want to perform. They want to put up awesome videos on social media of diagonal palm shift. And I love it. As Eugene Berger would say, there's so many rooms in the house of magic. Dope. Like, I'm viewing this through a lens where I really want to be a professional artist. I really don't want to go back to tech. I really want to give people high value for their 50th birthday party and then have them be like, we're having you back next year. We love magic now. So for me, I need craft and performance. I don't have the luxury of one. Like, and I think some performers do just have performance and don't have craft. Those people will hit a bar eventually. Like, they just won't be able to play at the level of people who have both. Like, it's actually so simple. Do you want to do the gigs that the top people do? Do you want to share with big audiences and great venues? I don't know. I do. So I'm going to need both. I mean, Colin from day one and Ben Seidman from day one, it was like, oh, these guys have both. So, you are the product of the 5 people you hang out with. If the 5 people around you have great technique but don't get on stage, I'll show you who you're going to look like in 5 years. You can still be happy, by the way. Like, that's so, like, dude, like, being a move monkey is awesome. Some days I wish I was just a move monkey, but that would be, back to our first point earlier, that would be against what my soul says. And my soul says get on stage, not just perfect the technique.
One question that I always like to ask magicians, because I also do improv as well, is a question in regards to how much of you do we see in your performance? For some, it's 100% them. For others, it's a characterization that they're putting on. For some, it's kind of in the middle. For you, how much of David Gerard do we see in your performances?
So it's a great question, man. Great. So the answer really depends. because of things like venue and audience and show length, and are we strolling, close up, parlor, stage? So I really would be surprised if someone can just say 100%. I don't know. Like, how much would you see of anyone if they only did 5 minutes? If you see me do my full evening show in a theater where everyone has paid for a ticket, so no one was forced to be there, I think you're seeing a lot. I think you're seeing 70% of me. And I'll tell you what the other 30 is in a second, but you're at 70. But man, you come see me do 30 minutes for the, Salesforce kickoff at the Fairmont across the street. And, I'm just doing wham bam pop mentalism. I don't know. Yeah, you don't see it all. And I think for me, the real opportunity and invitation is, how do you show yourself in a vulnerable, authentic way at 9:30 when they've had 2 glasses of wine and they don't want to be there? And so, like, my idol is Tim Conover, and look at the style. Why was it like that? Well, look at the rooms he was playing. He made a decision to come out of the gate strong and blow people away. I think other people can probably do it differently. And then theater just opens up the rabbit hole so much more, obviously, for depth and showing yourself. I think the thing that's interesting here that I can add to the conversation is, like, showing 100% of your authentic self is such a complex topic, because one, you have to understand your quote unquote self and discover it. And then two, think about the way that you actually distribute or share it to the audience. So for me, like, I have a very, very deep mindfulness practice. I really do believe in therapy. I believe in group therapy. I believe in having really deep connections with people, as for many reasons. But one is to find your authentic self, right? And to find, oh, wow, like, someone came at me with a point of feedback in my men's circle 2 nights ago. Whoa, okay, who is that, right? And if you're hip to any of the newer kind of, like, therapy modalities, like, anyway, I'll spare you on the jargon, but this idea that we're made up of multiple parts. So there is the David, right, who is the, flamboyant showman, and there is the David who's the quiet, introspective writer at night, and there is the David who, you get it. And so for me, how do you show 100% if you don't even know what 100% is as the grand unfolding of your personality happens? What even is your character? If you want to throw in some Eastern wisdom here, right? Around, like, it's just programming, conditioning on top of awareness. So that's a long tirade, but I don't think this is something you ever answer, because constantly changing. I think about one of my best friends, Theron Schaub, Theron before his son and after his son. The show he does the night before Oliver is born is total. Maybe he's at 100%, and then a month later, he's at 30 because of the unfolding. And so anyway, I get excited about this topic because it's a question without an answer. And look, I am personally trying to get more vulnerable, authentic, and deep on stage, which has to happen off stage first.
Man, I love that. I love that answer so much. It sounds like you really care about David off stage as much as you care about David on stage.
Yeah, where you like look, I get 3 hours of stage time a week, and I get 24 times 7, off stage. Like, you have to go back to, like, what do you believe the point of art is? Like, what do you believe is the point of getting on stage? And for a long time, I thought it was to do the tricks and to fool people and this and that, which is really cool and important and still part of the mosaic. But yeah, I'm interested in the unique transmission of an individual through an artistic medium, which happens to be magic. And so for me, I don't want to be the second Darren. I don't want to be the second Colin. I don't want to be the second Ben. What's the point? And why would I withhold that from my audience? But that requires a very different digging in the rabbit hole of self to come up with that stuff, Like, Jared Koff is one of my idols, and to see him go from the phase 10 years ago, where it really was about honoring, I think, Bob White and his mentors, to now the perspectives that are intertwined with the past. Like, thank God he's not withholding that. Thank God he's not just doing a script from a book. But let us remember, this is so hard. And I think it's important. And by the way, I am a student just trying, maybe one grade ahead, trying to say what I've learned. But if you look in the introduction of the Johnny Thompson book from Teller, or you look in the new Darren book, they're saying in the beginning, we need to copy. In the beginning, right, we need to have look up to our idols. There's so many things to do at the Magic restaurant. You probably should cook grandma's chicken while you figure out how to talk to guests and look like, you know, yeah, dude, I'm doing freaking, tricks that everybody does for sure, and trying to put my unique spin on them. And then maybe in 5 years, you know, I'll change it. I'll be able to change that. Like I have some other pieces, but Rome wasn't built in a day.
As I hear you talk, I'm reminded of this popular quote that's floating around nowadays in the world of improv. And honestly, I apply it now to everything. And it's the phrase, you are enough, which was coined by a great improviser named David Rosowski. And it sounds to me like you definitely champion that idea of you are enough. Am I right on that?
Yes, I think I would champion it, and I would say that it's one side of the coin. So you are enough. I didn't know it was popular in improv, but it's very popular like in spiritual circles, and it's very popular in self-help and professional development. And yeah, it's all around Instagram. And why is this? Well, I mean, here's one guy's take. Like, we have been told forever by advertisers and marketers like my former self that we are not enough until we get the Lexus. We are not enough until we get the new double cross gimmick. We are not enough until we do whatever. And constantly, and because capitalism doesn't work unless you have a gap, because if all your needs and wants are fulfilled already and you're already enough, then I don't need the Kim Kardashian line of sandals or whatever. So I really would love to hear the take on how it relates to improv in a second. I think for me, you are enough for me allows me to come from a place where I am at rest with myself and not beating down myself with some crazy narrative that I suck or that in 10 years I'll finally be worthy of love. This goes right into like, how do you have self-compassion and unconditional love for yourself, which then becomes the stage on which you can go out into society. If you're going out into society or into your audiences from a state of lack where you don't think you're enough and you hate yourself, then you are going to be looking extrinsically for love and value. And the audience will subconsciously feel this guy is needy and he's here for his own benefit, not for mine. Now, all of these are happening on like very different levels of consciousness, I imagine. But yeah, you ever see a performer who just really needs the applause? And if you haven't, like, I'll send you tape of me 5 years ago. Like, I only know this path because like I'm on it. And so, okay, so I said it's two sides of the coin. I am enough is the one side. And then I guess you make a decision of like, I'm already enough. And I mean, I'm in this lifetime. I was born into this incarnation. We can get woo later if you want. And I have these tools and these gifts. So can I simultaneously be enough while I explore the maximum expression of my gifts? Like that's what I'm trying to do. Like I really want to see how good I can get. And I'm enough. Like I am at peace and I would like to share these gifts and I would like to see, I'm 35 and like the show's solid. What does it look like at 50 years? What does it look like when I have more in my bones? And really, what is the gift then to the audience then? Like take David out of it. If David is just the light, like the stained glass that the light shines through, how do I make my stained glass as amazing as possible so the light can, you get what I'm saying? Those words about the stained glass were inspired by Danny Buckler, who gave an amazing talk about being in the moment and letting the art kind of move through and just being so prepared that it can do so. So a lot of this inspired by him, and a lot of other different sources.
That is so lovely. I really enjoy all the answers to these questions so far. I love it when it gets like really passionate and into it.
Yeah, man, I'm glad. And can you double click what is resonating here? Because I have a hypothesis, but I'm curious. Like, what's in the answers?
I mean, everything that you're saying, you can sense the passion in what you're saying and how much it means to you and how much it means to you that everyone else knows this.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I feel like not only am I having this conversation with you, but at the same time, I'm also learning. So for me, with every interview that I do, whether it's an improviser or a magician, I feel like it's like a mini class for me because I'm just soaking up all this knowledge and everyone else gets to hear it. So everyone else gets to hear this knowledge as well.
Awesome. I'm so glad you said that, because we can then use this as an example of the stuff I'm trying to actually talk about, which is passion and energy and intent. Like I don't think it's crazy for the listeners to not know, like, you didn't give me $5,000 to do this. You know what I mean? And so the intent is pure. And I think that, look, this isn't for everybody, right? The same way that, like, I don't really love you too, but the intent there, it's working for somebody, right? And so that's what I hope you can hear, is that the intent is pure this afternoon. All I'm trying to do is be of service. And I think the other thing is that we are not talking about the shift, and we're not talking about how I market my shows, because today that's not what I'm really passionate about. So then I'm just doing a disservice. So the same way I pick material that I love, we're picking topics today that I love. And since you're a great interviewer, you're just pulling the thread that seems interesting versus being like, okay, but like, what's in your walk around set? For someone else, that would be like, that's where they would light up. And I so often, when this is just hopefully helpful for people, like, interview yourself about the tricks you do and see which ones you get excited about and which ones you don't. So, like, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to think of examples of tricks I have in my drawers that, like, I love in practice and theory, but then when I put them on stage, they fall apart. Like a lot of drink productions for me, like, I just don't feel right. I don't feel right doing them. The liquids and stuff, it's not me, and I've tried, right? Versus other things, like the first night I did McDonald's Aces, I was like, okay, forever, you know?
Yeah, McDonald's Aces is definitely one of those things where you see a lot of people do it because everyone needs an ace trick.
Yeah. And actually, I love that you said that. And they do it because it has a lore around it that this is a killer trick. And it might not be for you. You know, and I think having friends, Colin and Ben say to me all the time, like, it just like doesn't really feel like you. And so then it's an invitation. How could it feel like David or not? Like, I'm working on a bottle production now, but instead of a bottle, it's a can of hairspray. And then I will like do my hair during the show, because I had an improv bit once where I grabbed hairspray and it was really funny. And I'm like, okay, it would be cool to like produce this and blah, blah, blah. And so we'll go see, how does that feel, you know? And then my friends can help me be the mirror and say, you know, whatever.
What I love so much is that as you talk about this need to have that passion, what's wonderful about it is that that passion definitely comes through loud and true in your performance. And so we all feel that passion right along with you, which I think is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And I mean, I'm just following in the footsteps of passionate performers. Like when I saw Darren live, dude, I'm there's the bar, you know, the bar for passion, you know, yeah. Oh, I just saw Richard Turner at the Castle. Just it's just flowing off of these people in these waves. And then I've seen a lot of people who probably should have quit magic 10 years ago or gone deeply inward about what is the next journey for them. And by the way, my shows in March and April were not stellar because I was burned out. I had traveled a lot. I had a lot going on in my personal life. And so I don't know if you would have felt the passion that night. You know what I mean? And, you know, Ben Simon and I last year, we did the Castle. I think we did 12 shows. Look, like 4 of them probably weren't great. You know, maybe I wasn't passionate that night. And so then it's my job as a professional entertainer to deliver. How do I deliver? What does it look like? What did I do that day that threw me off my game? Did I not? You get what I'm saying? This is hard.
It really is. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the whole thing of how much of you is in every performance. And, you know, if you're burned out, I think the audience can kind of see that. Because the audience, even though they haven't practiced magic like us, they know. The audience is a lot smarter than I think a lot of performers give them credit for. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. And what's funny is, you know, my gut reaction was, they don't know if they do know if you're burned out. But I worked with a lot of people for 12 years in corporate America who are burned out, and like, maybe you can't tell because you just have a 30-minute meeting with them, or maybe they're like, they're a 12 normally energetically, so their 9 is still pretty good. And so actually, I'm not sure. What I do know for sure, though, is a non-burned out performer will be better than the burned out version of that performer. And sometimes you see someone on the second night at the castle when they're excited versus the seventh, and I think you feel it. I've seen a lot of matinees, and they're different than Saturday night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you kind of walk me through what your process is in creating a routine? Like, let's say you found a new hairspray production that you're working on. What's your process in getting that worked out and putting that in your show?
Yeah, so I only want to provide newness here in the answer because honestly, it's very similar to what people have heard about before. At a high level, I fall in love with either an effect or a story. If I fall in love with the effect, I research every version that's out there. I email the brain trust and try to figure out what they've done before, so on and so forth. And if I fall in love with a story, then I try to think about, well, what's the best way that this story is brought to life through the craft of magic, or what could lend itself to that, which eventually leads you to an effect. So, see point number one, go figure it out, Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm constantly pinging like a dozen people for what might be the best method and the best way to do this. So, and then, oh, this is the unique bit. Maybe I will try my damnedest to do it in strolling, even if it is a stage piece. So it is a little comical that I have done like stage confabulations in walk around. It's a little comical that I've done egg bag in walk around. I've never done like linking finger rings or something, but like, I bring book tests, strolling. I mean, I've done it all, man. I've done it all because I want 5 performances in a night, and the only way to get that is strolling. And even tonight, literally in 3 hours, I have a gig. I have a piece that you should probably not be done close up, but it's fine. Like, I'll back up, and I'll make it happen. I might have people sit down, but it's like, how can I get this on its feet as fast as possible? I take out my phone, I hand it to someone, I say, this is new. I need to show one of my friends what it looks like. Can you film it? I'm doing this at professional gigs. No one knows it's my phone. It's fine. And I get the footage. Thank you so much. Throw it in my pocket and we're good to go. And I can get revs on things way faster than anybody. Like, so that's the uniqueness, right? And I will often just put my voice recorder down on my phone and I will just talk. I'll just talk about what this effect is and what it could be and why I'm doing it. And I'll listen to it back and I'll try to find scripts. And yeah, I think the strolling thing is probably most interesting. That, like, yeah, dude, I mean, I'm going to run this piece like hopefully 7, 8 times tonight. It's incredible.
There are a lot of people who appreciate stuff that's done for large audiences, and there are other people that appreciate even more stuff that's done for smaller audiences. For you, do you have any particular preference? And what for you, aside from the obvious, are some of the differences between performing for large crowds and performing for smaller crowds?
So my answer changes every day. You've found me in a close-up period of my life. I was really into a stage period last year. It goes in waves. Depends on, I perform publicly sometimes. And for a while, I had an 80-seat theater every Wednesday. And I was really a parlor guy. I really loved 80 seats. I was like, I don't need anything else. And then I got really into some classic sleight of hand. And I'm like, shit, I think I love 14. Venue down the street I'm doing in a month is 40. Okay, I guess I like 40. So anyway, I got nothing for you on that. It's just ups and downs. And difference wise, I mean, look, I think the most interesting thing about audience size is I can connect with 10 people when it's just 10. How do I keep the connection vibration very high in these bigger rooms? And that's, you do a whole podcast on that, when you can't make eye contact with everybody, really a different speed. I'm not good for over 400 people. I mean, okay, I'm good, but I'm not exceptional. I don't have a lot of shots on goal. It's funny. I got a lot of, you can get a shot on goal one-on-one right now, but man, like, I really envy these guys who, were able to do the illusionists, for years and years and get really good at playing 2,000 people. That's a very special, special thing.
Do you remember the first time you performed at the Magic Castle?
Yeah, yeah. I sent Colin a photo of it the other day. I think it was 10 years ago. That sounds right. 10 years ago, me and him, we did the Peller Theater. No, yes, the Peller downstairs.
And what was that experience like for you to be at the Magic Castle where you know so many of the greats, so many of the giants have performed there right along with you?
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer there is, yeah, I remember being nervous about it, and I remember feeling honored to be there. And if it wasn't for Colin, I wouldn't have gotten in. Let's just be very clear. Like, I don't think that would have happened until much later. Colin has been my gateway drug and access point for so many things. And, he said I was good, and so we could go do it. And so I think for me, I was kind of just humbled and in a state of gratitude that I was able to, just hop over the velvet rope, if you will. Um, yeah, the castle is a very, very special place. And I just think really highlights how easy it is to be forgotten when people see a bunch of magic, and so it really becomes about what stands out. And like I go with Layman a couple times a year, and that conversation after at dinner or drinks is just so fascinating. Like, it's really hard to put yourself in the audience's shoes, and I think the castle allows us for a whole evening to sit around Layman and hear what they're saying. I mean, don't go interview them, but like bring a friend and really try to understand this. And yeah, it's similar with comedy, right? You can get so inside baseball, and it does help to pull back. And then for me to go and see someone like Richard Turner and have the kid in me once again ignited, priceless.
For many people, performing at the Magic Castle is definitely a goalpost for them. And there are a lot of people who set certain goalposts for their careers or what they want to do. Like for many magicians, it's I want to perform at the castle, I want to perform in Las Vegas, I want to do X, I want to do Y, I want to do Z. Do you ever make goalposts for yourself or do you kind of keep yourself open?
So it's a great question. So I think the first thing that comes up is goals are very interesting because they're driven by like motivation factors. Like, not only is it important to understand the goal, but understand why you're doing it. And it's so easy to just, look, I got a job at Google, not because, I mean, some of the intent was pure, but honestly, like I wanted to impress everybody in Pennsylvania because I thought they didn't know how smart I was. Like, it's just that was such an ego driven like accumulation of something. So do you want to perform at the castle so you can share the gift of mystery and wonder with new people? Do you want to perform at the castle to make money, which is fine? Do you want to perform at the castle to get thumbs up from other magicians? And then it's like, classic five whys. Like, well, why do you want to do that? And why do you want to do that? And why do you want to do that? And time and a place for everything. But it's interesting. So yes, I do make goals like a fiend. I made goals for most of my adult life, and they were very helpful to getting me to a place where I can do magic full time and so on and so forth. That was David 1.0, and I think that was really great. 2.0 is like I got to be really sure about why I'm doing something now before it goes on like the goal chart. And like Ben and me and Colin and my buddy Dan, we make goals at the beginning of the year. I got to be honest, I like dropped half of them because when it came time to do the goal, it didn't feel intrinsically right. And I was like, who will I become if I do this goal? And what will everything is about time for me sometimes. Like every like you have to allocate time to this goal. So America's Got Talent fool us by saying yes to that. You're saying no to something else. And so you have caught me in a period where I'm very weird on goals. I definitely have a monetary goal so I can provide for myself and my soon to be family and all that jazz. But no, my goal is not to perform in Las Vegas. I don't think that would lead to my ongoing happiness. I'm happy to question the goal, but I really love how I can go and help Colin and watch him build that dream. And right now, my goal is to do some great close-up shows in the city And back to your point about what percentage of you is on stage, I want to tick up to 75%, 80%. That's important. An exercise from, spiritual world is like, you're going to die tomorrow. What do you do? You're going to die in a week. What are you going to do? Like, death is the reminder about importance to reshift the stack rank. So I don't think I'm going to die next year, but if I did, I would want to do, I hopefully the life that I'm living right now would be, would pass.
Do you think there's a possibility of there ever being a David 3.0?
And every second I am changing. Yeah, I mean, David 3.0 is definitely going to be like, what is the combination of this mindfulness world with this magic world? Because I love both so deeply. But there is only so much time in a day. And so as I get more into, going on meditation retreats and stuff, or going down to Nicaragua to do some more mindfulness work, like that definitely changes the ability that I have to perform and to give to audiences and to be there when, the phone rings and my incredible, incredible manager, Bill Hers, who has changed my life, when we want to go and give audiences magic. So that's a balance. So 3.0 is definitely about finding those intersections. I think the wife, the kids, and all that changes it too. So yeah, man, there'll be multiple versions, which is what keeps it fun, I think.
David, I have one more question for you, and this interview has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say to this final question.
Well, you've been great, dude. Thank you for letting me freestyle here. And I think, I just wanted to get into some new ground. And I think we've done it. So like, I'm already, you're enough. I'm enough. Well, this episode's enough, but hit me with one more.
Well, I'm very honored to hear you say that. Here's my final question. What's the one piece of advice that has served you well that you'd want everyone else to hear?
Man, I love how the question one thing forces an answer that is about importance and about, well, what's the one thing, before the elevator door closes that you say? I think I have to semi massage though and say a few of the things. So the one that comes up most resonant right now is because of a magician named Steve Silverman who passed away about 3 weeks ago now. And Steve Silverman was an incredible close up worker and a guy who was up here in the Bay, down in SoCal, performed at the Castle. And Steve said to me back in the day when I was hemming and hawing about getting on stage, theaters, the Castle, whatever, he said to me, he's like, don't wait. Like, he said that he had waited too long to do the Castle and he was waiting for this perfect set with the perfect tricks, with the perfect moment, and it might never come. So he wasn't saying get on stage if you're terrible, but he was saying like, no, lean in, right? Like, lean in on reality. And he gave me a lot of faith and courage to go and do 20 people in Palo Alto, do the bar mitzvah, do the cocktail set, whatever. And so, yeah, like, don't wait. I think don't wait is a really great piece of advice. And that really came from Steve. And that's like that kind of good urgency and that good, yeah, let's go and put this into the world. Let's see what we can do. So that really rises to the top as number one. And number two is like, for those who are interested in this, Ram Dass is a famous spiritual guru type guy. And his advice was always like, you're not actually who you think you are. And what he was alluding to was that when you start to pull the spiritual thread around who really are you? What is awareness? What is your idea? Like, we're doing this in English. You didn't choose that. My parents, your parents chose to be here to learn English and so on and so forth. Like, my views on all of these topics, what's really mine? And so Ram Dass, and his contemporaries were all, and as far back as the Buddha, was like, you should really start to peel these layers away. So for me, for 32, 33 years, I tried to find happiness externally through promotions at Google and startups and people standing and clapping and by being hot shit. And then I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I looked forward at CMOs who were 40 and 45, and most of them didn't seem that happy. I looked forward at a lot of performers, and some seemed really content and happy and at peace. I remember walking Eric Mead's dog with him, and I was like, there is something in Eric Mead's veins that I would love to understand. And then I saw people who had done one too many cruise ships, and I get that some people had to do that for money. I'm really not trying to judge any of that. But what I'm saying is that, like, I had to start architecting my path to understand how can I, there's 40 years left in the tank. How can we do this in a way where we're going to feel at peace? The first 33 led to huge benefits and great finances and stuff, but they didn't hit the soul. So, that invitation from Ram Dass, that advice of like, hey, go inward, really double click, find out who you are. And you can do that in a multitude of ways: on stage, on a meditation cushion, in a chat like this. So I think those are my two pieces of advice. Don't wait, and then go inward, know thyself, if you will, which is maybe never ending. I don't know.
Well, David, thank you so much. This was a wonderful interview, and I wish you all the best of luck in your life and your career and everything else in your future, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate that. Let me quickly also, to provide more value, if possible, people, if they like the stuff I'm saying, there's a magicians only Instagram channel I have called @GerardSpeaks. They can search for that, and there's little videos and tips and tricks like this that I think people would find interesting. If they're at a convention, tell me that you listened to me and LD. It would make my day. And then there's some other podcasts floating around that kind of flesh out other angles. But I'm one email away, davidgerard.com. It's pretty easy. And I really appreciate it, LD. Thanks for giving the time today. And that was the fastest hour of my life. So I really, really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Cruising.
Very great pieces of advice shared today. Don't wait. Make it happen. It's not going to happen for you. And make sure you know who you are. I can't agree with that more. You got to know who you are. You got to know what you're all about. Know what are the gifts you have that everyone will love and benefit from. Thank you so much, David Gerard, for chatting with me today. He's truly an amazing guy and someone who will lift your spirits. To learn more about David's show and how you can book him for events, visit his website, davidgerard.com, and be sure to tell him LD sent you. Thanks again for joining me, my friends. Be sure to like and review and let everyone know about the podcast. Until next time, I'm LD Madeira. You are who you are, and you are special. See you next time on Improv and Magic.